Dr. Vandana Miller, welcome so much. I know you told me to call you Vandana, so hi, how are you?
Vandana.
Thank you.
Vandana.
Vandana, sorry about
Yeah.
that.
No
I'm
worries.
so I'm so happy to be talking to you. Thank you for getting back to me. Congratulations on your coming retirement from one professional aspect of your life, and I'm sure that there's a lot of exciting days coming up for us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me.
Yes, yes. So I did a wonderful. I told you, as I told you on the phone before we started recording an introductory call. I did a very fascinating podcast with Gabe Zhu about plasma physics, and he mentioned to me while we were talking that plasma is being used in all sorts of different applications, biological and medical. And I've only heard of it in the case of kind of space rocket type of science, and I started looking into some plasma medicine and people that research and apply it in a real world way. And you're one of the first names that came up. And I wanted to learn about this whole world. I think this whole world is fascinating. It's probably going to be groundbreaking for our understanding of all science, as you mentioned in our phone call, that plasma is truly interdisciplinary in its context. But maybe if you can explain um, how you got exposed to plasma and then your understanding of what it is, and then I guess we could go from there.
Sure. So I was unaware of plasma medicine in February 2013. And specifically on Super Bowl day, I was
Oh,
at a Super Bowl party. So here's something for young people. Connections are important. Listen to people that make conversations. Um, and there was this gentleman there who supposedly is considered the father of plasma medicine. His name is Alex Friedman. And he started talking to me, and I mean, it seemed like, space age, Star Wars magic kind of stuff. But it was intriguing. So, then he sort of said, you should come work with me. And I said, make me an offer I can't refuse. And he actually did.
wow. What he say? What were you guys talking about that he made an offer, in the middle of your conversation?
Well, as you alluded to, it's a very interdisciplinary science. And Alex is a plasma physicist.
Mm.
And he has been collaborating with various other scientists in other fields to make plasma move forward. But when I heard him talk, it sounded like, the engineers were considering plasma like a hammer looking for a nail. So he was constantly looking for nails to hammer in. And when he described it to me, I suddenly thought of redox biology because it was like, but this is nature. What you're talking about is nature. This
Mm.
is how physiology really works. But I wasn't convinced myself that he and I were talking about the same thing. So I came home and read some and did some research and was like, this is what it is. And somehow the engineers are doing themselves disservice by calling it just a tool and not a whole field of science.
Mm.
So then I went and met with him. And we sort of came to an understanding, and I sort of joined his research lab.
Wow.
And he had a graduate student at that time in his lab who actually helped make this a groundbreaking science. That student was phenomenal, very hardworking, never afraid of doing anything new. I probably traumatized him quite a bit because he was actually a nuclear engineer to start out.
Oh, wow.
Believe it or not, now he does plasma immunology. So he's,
Wow.
so very bright kid. Well, not a kid anymore. So with his help and a few other collaborators, then we were able to sort of start looking at it as a science rather than just a tool to make things happen.
Amazing. That's crazy. So what is it? Well, when he was trying to describe this to you and you're like, I don't I'm trying to understand what you're describing. How did he explain it? Then when you went home and did some homework and you realized that this is nature, what new understanding did you get of plasma that helped clarify that to you?
So again, we were at a party.
Hmm.
It was a Super Bowl party. We were watching Eagles lose, I think, that year. Maybe. I don't know. I can't remember.
Go
Uh,
Eagles, I imagine, right?
Go Eagles, but not,
Go
I don't
Eagles.
think in the team they were playing. Or maybe, like, we can go back and look historically. But, there was a lot of drinking going on. And if you ever talk to Alex and his son was with him, you can never get a word in edgewise. They like to
Mhm.
talk because they're very enthusiastic. So I was basically doing all the listening and
Ah.
couldn't really, and trying to absorb and understand, because also English is not their first language. So there was, some few language challenges too, where I have to interpret and all those things. But then I went and looked up, and really what this plasma that they were talking about is um, a mix of reactive oxygen and nitrogen species. And our body cells, all living cells, work through that redox balance. The redox
Mhm.
balance is set at a different level in different cells and tissues,
Okay.
but they function by maintaining that balance. And any upset in that balance can sometimes be physiologically necessary. For example, if you want cells to divide, your skin to regenerate, or, when kids are growing, you want
Mhm.
a little higher redox. So you
Mhm.
want cells to divide
I
or
see.
differentiate it to become a bone or become a cartilage or whatever.
Okay.
But under normal conditions, it's the redox is in balance. And what plasma is doing is very controllably changing that situation.
Mhm.
So, so you can determine whether you want the cells to divide and differentiate, which is how they use it in wound healing, for example.
Okay.
Or you want cells to die, where you give them a lot of redox stress, and then they're so stressed that they just die.
So
And then
the
you can
application.
make many things in the middle.
Okay. So to clarify, just to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, the plasma, the application of plasma in a particular way would allow in a controlled environment, you could choose the way that you want the plasma to interact with, I guess, your biology and to follow your orders, essentially, right?
Uh, we would love to get to that point. We're getting closer to that, but I mean, that's where the research is.
I see. Okay. And so the
Yeah.
research is
How
how
can
to
we make
apply
the
plasma to
plasma
biology.
to, so, there, for us biologists, and there are very few biologists who are doing truly plasma medicine, I would say a handful in the world.
Wow.
And what we're trying to do is two things. One, to figure out what biological processes can be influenced by plasma
Hmm.
for disease management, and then how to control it.
Right.
So
I see.
one part is largely biology, which again, I was trained as a physician. I'm not a laboratory scientist per se, although I have been doing research for many years. So, but science has become so topically specialized these days that
Hmm.
I collaborate with cancer biologists, with wound healing experts, with immunologists, with virologists, etc., it's a cell biologists to study those aspects. But then the control of plasma is very much a highly interdisciplinary. You need the engineers, you need the
Mm.
physicists, you need the chemists, you need the biochemists, and anymore, we need the computational scientists because we want everything to be automated. The large volumes of data that we're producing
Hmm.
somehow has to be analyzed, and then we are able to train our devices to respond to those.
Awesome.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So those are the two big um, paths that plasma medicine is taking these days, as far as biologists go. The engineers are still building devices, and the physicists are still doing their stuff.
Right. So you're hearing this described in a physics sense, in a physics application, and you're saying to yourself, this sounds like everything. And when you go home, or this sounds like nature. This sounds like, like almost all sciences. And you go home, you start looking into this, and then you realize the potential biological and human application rather than just a physics perspective looking at this.
Not quite. They had already started working with biological targets.
Mm.
But, it was mostly about what can we kill, because at that time we knew that high amounts of plasma will kill anything. So the very first application the engineers started looking at was decontamination and disinfection,
Oh,
which
right.
wrongly, they all still call sterilization. It is not sterilization because technically that's a whole different thing. But I mean, you can kill anything inside of plasma. So,
Really?
that was a very, very natural, normal, and useful application to study.
Okay.
So you can
Uh,
kill a microbe inside,
you can put a microbe inside or kill a microbe inside.
kill a microbe.
Okay, how does that happen?
Or it's
And maybe,
oxidation. It's
sorry?
oxidation, basically chemically burning the things. You're oxidizing molecules.
I see. Oh, okay. So maybe, so I've heard from, so the way that Gabe explained this to me is he said that water might be the best way to understand what plasma is, where he says, if you imagine frozen water, that's ice. So you have the frozen element, then you have water, which is liquid. And then when you boil it or you heat it up more, it goes to steam. And then if you heat it up more than that, and he says that on Earth, or here, I guess it's pretty temporary, but it turns into plasma post gas, I guess. So plasma would be the step above gas.
Right.
You're saying that whatever it takes to get to create it takes to create plasma, creates enough energy that it could isolate anything and kill it that would be contained within it.
It's not what it takes to create plasma, but plasma itself. So, you got to gas, but
Mm-hmm.
until we're at gas, the
Mm-hmm.
molecules and atoms are intact, right?
I
All it
see.
is they're farther apart from each other. In ice, they're compacted. In steam, they're all over the place. What
Mm-hmm.
happens when you're making plasma is you're actually ionizing them. So free electrons that are very energetic are released from the outer orbits of these atoms. All
Okay.
right. Now, so what has happened now? You have a negatively charged element and then the positively charged core. So we have
Mm-hmm.
ionized molecules here. So two things happen. If you're ionizing air, you have nitrogen and oxygen. So you get ionized oxygen molecules and not molecules, but ions.
Mm-hmm.
So you singlet oxygen, superoxide, etc., etc. And then you
Mm-hmm.
get similarly nitrogen radicals, right? So these are
And
very, very unstable. So what every element tries to be as stable as possible, and then they start recombining. So
mm,
these recombining stages that start getting molecules that biology understands. So biology understands superoxide because cells make them.
okay.
Biology understands OH radicals because cells make them just as part of their respiratory byproducts. So there are
Mm-hmm.
all those molecules. And then you have these highly energized charged electrons that are bounding around. And they keep bombarding newer and newer atoms. And so this ionizing wave is just propagated. So you're getting newer radicals that are short-lived, but you're
Yes.
also getting these secondary byproducts through recombination.
Right.
So there's a lot of chemistry happening. Okay.
Mm.
The other side is the physics of plasma. So anytime ionization happens, there's photons produced, light is produced. And that is usually when you ionize in air, it's UV.
Mm-hmm.
So there's small amounts of UV produced. And as you know, in medicine, UV is also used.
In medicine.
Yes, ultraviolet light is used for
Oh,
therapeutic.
correct. Right. Sure.
So, I mean, hydrogen peroxide is used for disinfecting. And the
Mm-hmm.
most stable product of plasma is hydrogen peroxide.
No way. It's a type of plasma?
It's not a type of plasma, but hydrogen peroxide is a component of plasma.
I see.
So
And so when that
plasma is
interacts,
like a cocktail. It's
I
a
see.
cocktail of chemistry and physics. There are shock waves produced, so there's that. There are small amounts of electric fields, which are also used in medicine. And there's a whole field of pulse electric fields.
Mm-hmm.
Beauty of plasma is that each single component is in such low quantities that by itself it can do nothing. But put together, it becomes effective. That means the toxicity of any single product is mitigated. So there's very little toxicity associated with plasma as that cocktail. If you needed to use that much hydrogen peroxide or the amount of hydrogen peroxide that I need to kill bacteria,
Yeah.
we get a fraction of that in plasma, but combined with everything else, it's very effective. So there's no tissue damage.
There's no tissue damage
There's
because it's Because it's not interacting with the tissue, it's interacting with whatever you're applying it to, or because
No,
tissue isn't
because
bothered by
because
it?
because the individual quantities of each, let's say, toxic product are so low
Okay.
that there's no toxicity. But that's the part of science that we're still trying to work out. So the going hypothesis right now is that the quantities are so low of any single plasma effector that by itself it's not sufficient to cause any effect.
Hmm.
Similarly, by itself it's not sufficient to cause any toxicity. But
I
combined,
see.
somehow they synchronize and they're
So you're
very.
talking about directing it. You're talking about like directed plasma, or like you're putting enough of them that they would have an impact, and you're being or I guess that's what the research would be, and trying to be as specific as you could be to apply to a particular part of your body, and then everything else that it comes in contact with. By that point, it's already dispersed and pretty much not dangerous or beneficial. At that point, it's just kind of the state that it is.
Put it quite like that. I mean, so, from talking to Gabe, you've heard that I don't know if he talked about how many different ways there are to deliver plasma for plasma
No,
medicine.
no.
Okay.
Please, I'd love to hear.
All right. So let's see. Let's start with my favorite device because I understand it the best. So if
Okay.
you were to sort of imagine a pen, all right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's the tip end where you write with, and then there's the back end where you control okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if the back end is the kind of plasma I use. So there is for any circuit, you need an anode and a cathode, right? Positive and negative.
Mm-hmm.
My electrode, there is a single electrode. Okay. To complete the circuit, we need a second electrode. And that becomes the target. So if I want to treat skin, I bring the electrode very, very close to my skin, but you need
Mm-hmm.
airspace because you want to ionize the air.
Mm-hmm.
And you close the circuit that way. Okay. This is
Okay.
called a floating electrode dielectric barrier discharge. Now, the
Okay.
amount of electricity going in through my 110-volt wall plug, that what comes out of here is in kilovolts. We're talking that my lowest energy device is about 8.5 kilovolts. So imagine 8,500 volts on your skin, unprotected, would fry you. You'd get a
Right.
massive electric shock. So what the engineers do is they cover the metal electrode, which could be aluminum, which could be copper. They use many materials with
Mm-hmm.
something called a dielectric.
Okay.
And it can
But
be glass, that can be quartz. There are many kinds there's alumina, there are all kinds of dielectrics. Everybody has their own favorite dielectric.
okay.
What that does is that mitigates the amount of electric energy that's coming through,
Mm-hmm.
but it's enough to ionize the air around you.
Mm-hmm.
And what
I
happens
see.
is that wherever the electrode is in that specific area, you'll get this. We see it with our eyes, a purple glow, which is the chemistry and the physics of plasma. And that's
Right.
acting on the skin because now it's created right there
Mm-hmm.
and it's deposited right there. And the moment I turn the power off, everything turns off. Okay. So this is called the DBD type of device. The other, if I turn it around, is the tip end, but imagine your filler is not there and there's a hole. All
Okay.
right. So now what these engineers have done is both the electrodes, the positive and the negative, are in this portion of the device.
Mm-hmm.
They turn the power on and the plasma is created between these two electrodes.
Okay.
And then they have a gas flowing that blows it out of this hole. That's called
Uh-huh.
the jet plasma. Okay.
Amazing. That's really cool. And that could be applied to biologics too.
Yes, that is one of the devices that's in clinical trials now. Now, the
Wow.
beauty of this device is that it's electrically safe because all the electricity is happening here. You're
Uh-huh.
just, right? So it's much safer because
Cool.
in my version of the device, if the dielectric cracks because it's glass or quartz, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. The
Yeah.
advantage of this device, my device, is because you're creating plasma where it is, you're getting all the very, very energetic, biologically active molecules right there.
Mm-hmm.
Your body's seeing it.
It's a shot of
Here,
it.
because it's literally, I treat targets for 10 seconds. That's all my treatments. 10 seconds.
Wow.
This jet is because by the time the plasma travels from here and onto the target, it takes a few milliseconds. You're
Mm-hmm.
already into the more stable chemistry.
I see. I
All right.
see. So that's how
Both
fast. That's how
have
fast it dissipates.
Yes, it's in picoseconds, microseconds, nanoseconds.
Wow.
So they're plasma computational chemists. There's one in the University of Michigan who's phenomenal. If you ever want to talk to him, he's hilarious too. He's just a gem. Love
What's his
him.
name?
Mark Kushner.
Mark Kushner?
Yeah.
I look him up. Yeah.
Um, so, so they've characterized this chemistry very, very well. So, so they both have their advantages and disadvantages. Now, so this is called direct plasma treatment. The other is what Gabe was talking about. What you can do is functionalize different liquids with this plasma. So what you can do is I could treat, for example, ringer lactate that they use in clinics for IV infusion. And we've
Okay.
done studies with that. You can infuse the plasma, treat that liquid with plasma. So all the
Yeah.
chemistry dissolves in it. And a number of people call it plasma activated, which I hate that phrase, but whatever. And then you can
Is
actually
that
transfer
accurate?
liquid into animals and get biological effects. So that's indirect plasma treatment. And that's the kind of things they're using in agriculture.
So you can when you okay now I'm sorry just to, so for the second I understood the pen examples were excellent, thank you, I understood that perfectly, and that was really, really wonderfully clear. One of the things I was thinking before you get to liquid real quick was I know that lightning is considered plasma, and I take my kids to the Science Museum in Fort Lauderdale, and they have those plasma balls from when I was a kid where like you touch it and then the
Then it
blue
moves with you.
purple kind of yeah. And what I've thought about, and it's so funny that you're clarifying that, is that you never actually have to make any kind of physical exact contact with the plasma. Like you have that separation there, and I guess that exists because you don't really need it, right?
No, it's
Because that little bit of air, right?
It's the connection.
Right.
It's chemistry. I mean, it's again, think about biology. We're a bag of chemistry, but we're also
Right.
a very giant electrical circuit. Because of the ions that are flowing in and out, there are many electrical circuits. So we are both. And now we're contacting with something else that is both chemistry and physics and
Amazing.
circuitry.
Wow.
So the interaction is very cool.
It's super cool. It's incredible. It's incredible to hear, and it's also incredible to think about because I think that we do think of ourselves, even though we know of ourselves as chemistry and biology, we tend to think of ourselves, as mostly, thinking, and and we don't really. I don't think we spend enough time thinking about ourselves physically for what we are in ways to be able to interact with the world and the universe at large around us. So when lightning strikes, it doesn't literally strike anything because it would have to get within a close enough distance, and then there would be that little space of oxygen. So if lightning hit my tree in my backyard, hypothetically, it would come very, very, very close to it. And then as soon as that gets close enough that I guess the oxygen that's between the tree and then the plasma, which is the lightning, is able to now does the air interacts, or the air is filled with this? Is the air filled with this new energy from the plasma? Is that what's happening?
It is filled with energy, but lightning is very hot plasma.
It's hot plasma.
It's very hot plasma. I mean, it burns things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this plasma, it is cold lightning. Our plasma is basically cold lightning. Whatever the engineers have done, and that is the magic part of it to me, because I don't understand it. I know there is proper circuitry and physics behind it, but what they've done is made this plasma is room temperature. I mean, you touch it, you feel nothing except for a little vibration.
That's so strange. But I thought the way you get there is by heating it up. Or I guess it's a lot of energy, so it doesn't necessarily have to be hot.
It's a lot of electrical energy, yeah. But see, that's the thing. What they've done is the electron temperature remains the same.
Mm-hmm.
But the gas temperature remains room temperature.
Ah, yes. Gabe was explaining that to me. Yes. That's right.
It has something to do with the vibrational and rotational energy of the atoms.
Right. And it's able to contain all that energy, but it doesn't necessarily output in the same kind of way that we're used to interacting with.
So I mean, sun is the largest source of plasma. Lightning is plasma.
Right.
And if you want to understand the physics of all this, I can recommend another excellent physics teacher. He's in France. His name is Jean-Michel Pouvel. He's one of the
Okay.
best plasma physics teachers I have ever met in my life. And another one who's a storyteller. You will love to talk to him.
Okay. I'm so happy. Thank you. I have a bunch of names over here that that I've been jotting down while you're or descriptions even of things to look into. So okay, so that's really, really awesome and clear and exciting. I think it's really awesome. Now, plasma and water, as you were just alluding to it before I cut you off, I apologize.
Oh, no, no.
Um, you said we can use it to decontaminate. Gabe was mentioning that we use it to decontaminate water. You could use it to decontaminate water, which is one of the world's, I think, biggest
Mhm.
challenges. I think that we have, and if you look globally, that people's access to clean water is an enormous issue. Is
Absolutely.
plasma clean enough and cheap enough that this is a viable solution to be able to apply on a mass scale once we research this?
It's clean enough, but it's not cheap enough yet. So I think that is the biggest challenge for plasma sciences right now. Their
Mm,
solutions are very viable, and they have the kind of solutions that nobody else can provide, but they're not cost effective yet.
I
So I'll give
see.
you an interesting example. In India, in at IIT Delhi, this guy has made a portable plasma truck, I would say, where
Mm,
you can decontaminate, you can basically incinerate trash and convert it into hydrogen fuel,
wow.
but it's not cost effective yet.
And that's because the components are expensive, because the technology is not mass produced, because the research isn't there yet.
All of the
What's
above,
inhibiting it?
all of
All
the
the
above.
above.
You know, because I mean, ultimately, we're depending on electricity, and these
Right.
devices are not easy
Right.
to make them safe
Right.
because again, they operate at very high voltages.
Can I ask a
So,
silly question? I'm sorry, maybe if I don't understand.
no, no,
Is
no. This
electricity
is
hard
good.
to access? Is it why is electricity? I thought it's everywhere. I thought there's electricity everywhere.
It is everywhere, but the amount it takes
Mm,
to get the desired outcome, so what they need to convert that trash into hydrogen fuel, that
yes.
cost is enormous.
I see. Okay. Okay. Well, you know what? I think I guess hopefully, right, as it becomes a little bit more, I guess becomes a little more mainstream, and we can apply engineers that do the Elon Musk method of cutting out all the unnecessary steps that and might end up breaking a couple of things along the way, but generally resulting in cheaper and faster and larger manufacturing. Hopefully, that would have an impact on the application
Yeah.
of plasma around the world.
Yeah. I mean, again, plasma scientists are doing amazing things.
Mhm.
Um, and every time I meet a new person, it's like, oh my God, imagine that. Like I just last month met a guy in Coimbatore, India, who's collecting gold from gold waste.
Okay.
And
Using
he said,
plasma.
with plasma, but he says that is interesting to the gold industry because gold is expensive and it's
Sure.
getting more and more expensive. So that is interesting.
Yeah, I bet it's going to be fascinating, right? Especially when you have an industry that's in development right now, to see which commercial industry sees the most value and is willing to pump the most money into it, and to see which direction it evolves, right? Like the evolution of plasma can
Exactly.
go in a million different directions, I imagine.
Well, as you know, and so that's the plus and minus of plasma scientists. Because there is not enough funding for any one direction, we're floundering around and trying to do the this and do the that, and so there's no focus. And so the science is not building in any great deep way.
Mhm.
But then, you have to pay the bills. So you
Yeah,
do whatever helps you pay the bills. For us, for plasma medicine, I feel like pharmaceutical industry is not interested in this because, their continuous revenue stream is people buying pills.
sure. Yeah,
They
yeah.
want
I've
to
heard that before.
point here that could revolutionize cancer treatment or, other things.
Yeah.
Um,
By the way,
and
I've
in the US, research is not being funded in any field anymore. So
Yeah, yeah. We have our T's and I's crossed and dotted the wrong ways, I think, sometimes when we're
yeah.
trying to take care of this kind of stuff. But it's a learning experience, and that's really what I think. Hopefully, we learn, right? It's all a learning experience, but the question is whether or not we're actually going to learn from it. Um, so the so plasma in water, it doesn't. I understand that it can be used to decontaminate. Does it require any type of alteration or to have the plasma survive in water? Like, do you have to do anything to the plasma to protect it? Do the on a chemical level, do the particles interact differently when it's submerged in water or any kind of liquid relative to just being in the air, freestanding?
So, again, I'm not a physicist, but my rudimentary understanding of treating liquids with plasma is that you can't make plasma in liquid, although there are one or two groups who are now saying they can. I don't fully understand it. You need some gas phase. So those who claim that they're making plasma in liquid somehow, nebulize, make air bubbles or gas bubbles in the liquid, and then the plasma is made in that. Usually it's a surface treatment of plasma. So either you have the liquid in a dish and you treat from top, or there
Mm,
are other devices that, so it's sort of like a tunnel,
hmm.
and the plasma is running and then the water sort of flows through it like a vortex. And as it's flowing through it, it gets treated and comes out the other end.
Cool, cool, cool.
The
Okay,
species
so
get dissolved in it. Basically, all the chemistry gets dissolved in that water. And so the water has these oxidative properties now that can
I
decontaminate.
see. That is very cool. And I guess that's the frontier right now. And like you mentioned, that people are saying that it's possible now to create it in water, but until now, we're basically finding bridge and tunnel versions of being able to do this,
Yeah.
of applying plasma to things that are in liquid.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
So, so
you have to break down molecules, and in liquid, the amount of energy needed to break down those molecules is going to be a lot higher than it's in,
hmm.
because in any square cubic foot, not square foot, the number of molecules is fewer.
Right,
Gas
right,
phase.
right. Yeah, I did a very I had a very fascinating conversation with a marine biologist who's an acoustic, who's a musician, and she studies acoustics in the water, and we're talking about how acoustics interact within the water as opposed to outside the water, and and how to adjust for that when it comes to research, because I mean, playing music here and playing music underwater isn't quite the same thing,
Yeah.
right? Or even
Yeah.
listening to something. Really, really amazing stuff. So part in my research in looking into a little bit of your background, that I noticed that the specific term of non-thermal plasma was being applied as opposed to thermal plasma. Is that what you were saying is cold versus hot plasma, as you were describing earlier?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
Mhm.
I prefer the non-thermal because it is the opposite of thermal plasma. It's, I think, scientifically more accurate, but I think people are moving more and more towards cold plasma because it's more tangible to people and physicians. So anymore, my research articles go back and forth between CAP and NTP.
I see. I see. Okay. So you're doing this research now. You're understanding this wonderful world of plasma. It's very exciting. You're seeing how it's interdisciplinary. You're with Dr. Friedman, I imagine, and working with him.
Not
And
anymore. No, not anymore. Now I work with another plasma engineer. Her name is Katarina Stapelman. She's at North Carolina State University. So
oh,
most of my work has been with her, and then another physicist at Princeton. Her name is Sophia Gershman. So they're both phenomenal scientists. So
I
those are
see.
my engineering partners now, engineering and physics partners.
And what's that collaboration look like now? So when when you're doing your research and they're doing their research and you guys are collaborating, how what are you focusing on? What are they focusing on? And what kind of questions are you guys asking each other? What's the back and forth and the rapport like?
So the rapport is excellent. Um, so
That's
both
good.
Katerina and I are, um, I would say, aware of what we don't know, and we're willing to acknowledge it and learn from each other.
Hmm.
Um, so over the past 4 or 5 years now, we've been collaborating since 2018, so almost 6 years now.
Wow.
We've learned to speak each other's language. And so she can speak some biology almost as well as I can, and I can speak some physics and engineering almost as well as she does. So we're able to communicate at our interdisciplinary conferences with each other and other people.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the research goes, so our key collaborative project that was funded by NIH was based on wound healing, but again, to understand what are the active components and how we can control plasma. So what she did was she made a specific plasma device that we were going to use in our studies in our laboratory. And then we had a wound healing expert at Rutgers who was doing the animal works.
Okay.
So our overall approach to understand this was that we understand we create a wound and we want the wound to heal better than it does by itself because we want to accelerate that wound healing before it gets infected or gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
So based on her parameters that she gave us to operate the device, so for us, my communication to her was this device should be like a kitchen oven. You tell me, go to 350, put the cake in, pull it out in 45 minutes, the cake will be baked. That's the kind of information I need because that's what the physician will need.
Right. And
But,
then, yeah.
but the device has to be such that I have the flexibility to modulate it so I can make local corrections. Because one of the things we learned was that when they dose their plasma in their lab, they dose it over a metal plate. And so they tell us that when the knob is set to 1 and the switch is flipped this way, then you will get X amount of plasma. But the problem is when you put a biological target under the plasma, everything changes. That's when we started appreciating the interaction between the two chemistries and the two electrical circuits that no, it's not just plasma doing things to the tissue. The tissue is also doing things to the plasma. And that's when I started working with the group at Princeton, and we published this, that the plasma is actually, or the biological target completely changes the plasma.
Wow.
So then we were back to the drawing board, and it was like, well, you're doing your measurements, but I need to do my measurements too here.
Right.
So then we
On the
went to
biological level.
because now the plasma is different.
Right. Wow.
And we were able to show it that, the amount of hydrogen peroxide produced on a metal target is completely different from when you have cells under it or you a mouse under it.
Is it crazy? Is it crazy to say that it feels obvious? I mean, is that something? It feels like if I were to test a pen, like, our example, on a piece of paper or on my skin, you're going to have different outcomes. And so when you're testing the plasma, then you're going to apply it to a person. Wouldn't you expect, hypothetically, for there to be some kind of different
we never
reaction?
thought about it. We never ever thought about it because, for us, it was actually, I said metal, but really, deionized water is available everywhere. You can buy it in a bottle. So if we buy from the same source, it was like you measure in DI water in your lab, we'll bring it here and measure it in DI water. And if they're operating the same, we're good to go.
Right.
We were good to go until we started doing cells in a petri dish they don't grow in water. They grow in this liquid that has nutrients in it and all kinds of organic material in it. And all of a sudden it was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be very, very cryptic.
It's going to be super individualized also, I imagine, depending on who the patient is.
Absolutely. And that's when we got very excited about it, that my goodness, the controllability options are humongous.
Right.
So long story short, so between the two labs then, going back and forth, and because the device was tunable, and because she taught us how to use an oscilloscope where you can measure what plasma is doing. So we could collect those files and email them to her, and they would, her lab would examine them and tell us what the plasma was doing. So all we were just basically trained monkeys setting knobs and sending them back the data. But at our end, what we were doing was looking at the biological outcomes.
Right. That's important stuff.
And as a combined effort, then what we decided to use was 3 different doses. We identified the therapeutic dose where the wound healed the best. And then we went to a subtherapeutic dose and a damaging dose and was like, okay, now we have a range. Let's see what's different here. What's happening just in liquid? What's happening in complex liquids? What happens if I put cells? What happens on the mouse?
Right.
So by building this story, then we came up with some correlations, not cause and effect, not detailed connections, just correlations. And what we found was that when we have, I want to say off the top of my head, 40 micromolar hydrogen peroxide deposited in a wound on an animal through plasma, the wound healing is the best. If you put 40 micromolar hydrogen peroxide from a bottle, the wound doesn't heal the same way, but from plasma. So all that was is a correlative thing because there are other things in plasma. And then to demonstrate controllability, what we did, so in the past, what we were doing was controlling our dose through time. So we knew that when we treat animals for 3 minutes, you get 40 micromolar hydrogen peroxide deposited. And from those measurements, we determined that we needed 40 micromolar because the wound was healing the best. So we worked our way backwards. Wound healed. So we said, okay, the wound is healing after 3 minutes.
Yeah.
How much hydrogen peroxide is there?
Right.
How much is it there in 1 minute? How much is there in 5-minute treatment?
Right.
So then we came back and the engineers, the engineers did something to the device so that the device would measure hydrogen peroxide in the wound before treatment. And the moment it hit 40 micromolar, it would trip off. It would turn itself off.
Yes. Like one of those air machines for your tires.
Right.
Okay.
And so it was great because in some animals, it stopped after, a minute and a half. In others, it was 2.5 minutes. In other, it was 3 minutes. So it was not empirical anymore. It was very much science-based. So we can actually turn the device off after the right dose has been deposited.
And
But
do you get a real-time update as that, or is that what you'd be working on? Do you get a real-time update? Hey, the appropriate dose has now been provided, and we see that the skin, that the biologics are responding to the plasma, and now we're good to go. We're cutting off the creation of it.
Well, we can take real-time readings, but we can't analyze it there and then.
I see.
But the
And that would
device
be the
can.
next step.
The device can. So the device does it. So then we look at the files later on, say, yes, indeed, 40 micromolar was deposited when the device turned itself off.
Right.
So
So
that's
cool.
sort of the controllability part and through biology.
I mentioned to you when we were talking on the phone that I sell ultrasound machines and ultrasound equipment, and there's one of the newer vascular probes that GE manufactures has these 2 little buttons on the probe head, and it's a pretty high frequency probe. It goes from, I think, 4 to 12 or 13 megahertz, and depending on how deep or superficially you want the image to be, the deeper the deeper the image, the lower the frequency, the more close to the surface of the skin, the higher frequency you want to get. And because a lot of times doctors or diagnosticians or sonographers are, and not everyone is built the same way and has the same build and is the same size. A lot of times in real time, they'll be trying to get, let's say, a picture of your vein, and then they'll take the probe head, they'll push the button. Okay, we need to adjust. We need a little bit of a higher frequency over here. Okay, this guy's a little bigger. We need a little bit of a lower frequency to get to that same thing. Hypothetically, I'm imagining what you're saying, and so right now, the way you're describing it, the machine has this internal ability to be able to tell, and as this science develops, the actual person applying the plasma, the doctor, whoever it is that's applying the plasma, will be able to say, this looks like this is the appropriate amount for what your skin would, or what this wound would need.
Our hope is that no human being has to make that determination because what we're doing is training machine models.
Right.
So, it will automatically do a baseline measurement before treatment is started.
Uh-huh.
And then through repeat science, right now we picked 40 micromolar, but my sense is there'll be a window, 35 to 55 or something.
Right,
And
right.
then
And so if you're taking a horse, or you're taking a little cat, or you're taking a rabbit over to get this procedure done, or I guess this intervention done, that because it's not really a procedure, it'd be more of an intervention. That would be the machine would already be able to the machine would tell what the appropriate amount is, and the same thing would apply to different people and different biologies and different amounts of everyone's unique genetic makeup or biological makeup would be pretty easy to just adjust to.
So, we are the first to show this. Nobody else has
Amazing.
done this. We're the
It's so
first
cool.
to show this. It's still in
It's so
publication.
cool. It's so exciting.
That paper is out, and now we've just finished a validation study that indeed, if this is true, we've used a different probe now to see if the same principle stays true, that it takes the baseline measurement. But, it's not going to be completely accurate.
Right.
And that, as a biologist, I say, because we are using hydrogen peroxide as our molecule to determine, which is not really the effector.
Right. So take this same concept and apply it to the other research that it's being used for, which is selective cancer treatments, right? Or certain types of skin cancer. Does that work the same way as wounds would work? Or I guess you're trying to kill the cancer disease as opposed to encouraging regrowth for the skin, for the skin, right? Or for the cells?
Absolutely. And so that sort of becomes also our Trojan horse there. Or is Trojan horse the right analogy? Maybe not.
Did you watch the Odyssey?
Not yet. That's
okay.
week.
Enjoyed.
We can get tickets.
Enjoy.
Yeah, my
It's fun.
daughter is looking forward to watch it with us together. So we'll be in Denver next week. And
that's awesome. I love Denver too. So it's an amazing city.
It's an amazing city, yeah. And a funny thing, she moved from Florida to Denver. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll copy her. I might go to. I've been more inclined to go to Tennessee than I am Denver, Colorado. But Colorado is one of my favorite states as far as nature and beauty and just the variety of life there. It's just incredible.
Absolutely. There's something for everyone there. And there's a lot of young people. This great city for people your age. She's actually
Red Rocks. You should go to Red Rocks and you go for a concert.
Well, that's what we're doing. That we have tickets to Santana.
Oh, get out! Are you kidding? That's so cool.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yep,
That's so cool. Have a great time. Wow.
We intend to. Yeah. We always
Santana
have
at Red Rocks. That's a bucket list right there. That's
we saw Catriel and Paco Amoroso at Red Rocks.
Wow. Amazing.
So, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, yes, the cancer.
Coming back to cancer, the thing is, again, there's so few biologists, and most of the plasma medicine advertising happens from plasma engineers who are building the devices and, want to put it out there. That they go out there and say, we can do whatever you want. We can kill, we can differentiate, we can grow, we can, make gold out of things. And it's like, this is not the way to do things, because then you sound like snake oil.
Right.
Nobody wants that. You have to be very specific. So, and actually, so going back to one of our original conversations, when I joined plasma medicine, that's where they were. We can kill things. And so when they could kill bacteria and viruses and fungi, they thought, well, let's see if we can kill cancer cells. And sure enough, you can kill cancer cells. And they were like, oh, we'll cure cancer. But here's the thing with cancer, though. It metastasizes,
Right.
You treat one lesion, sure, you'll burn it, destroy it, but the amount of plasma needed to completely destroy it, you're going to have some collateral damage. Normal tissue will get damaged because you need very high doses of plasma to do that. But again, that's where my redox thinking came, that the body controls cancer through immune mechanisms. Immune stimulation occurs through redox stress. we have to go there. Plasma is the most controllable way of inducing redox stress. So that was the pioneering work of my graduate student, the one I mentioned earlier, Abraham Lin. So what we decided to do was treat cancer cells in a way that we don't immediately kill them, but we stress them out. We stress them out to a point where now they're asked to do one of two things, or maybe even both things. I don't know how cancer cells think. One is to ask for help. I'm stressed, neighboring cells help me, give me something.
Mm-hmm.
Or two, make a self-analysis. Is it worth it to save myself, or is it better to sacrifice myself? And then just
This is
recycle.
what happens I'm sorry, the cancer thing, the cancer cells?
Cancer cells, yeah, they have to make that choice. Every cell has to make that choice.
Okay.
Every cell makes that choice. Should I live and try to stimulate the rescue pathways? Or is it better to kill myself? A virally infected cell, for example, has to decide that if it kills itself, the virus will die with it. And so we get rid of the virus infection.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it better for me to ask for help from other cells, i.e. the immune cells?
Okay. And
there is some learning happening.
Right. So the cancer's learning our bodies?
The immune cells are learning.
The immune cells are learning the cancer.
The immune cells. So how does the immune system work? How does vaccination work?
I'm not sure. I'd love to learn.
So what vaccination is doing is introducing something that's kind of sort of dangerous to you, but in a way that it doesn't cause the disease.
Okay.
All right.
So a tiny little bit of it.
We were to think about COVID, for example. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If the whole virus is not there, but just the spike protein is there, it cannot cause the infection, but our body sees it as a foreign particle. The immune cell will see it as a foreign particle. And every time the immune system is stimulated, I won't say every time, but 99% of the time, it creates a memory. So that the next time it's
what is going on right now,
of what that foreign particle is.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then it creates an army that can fight that foreign particle. Specifically just that one challenge. No other challenge. It will not fight the flu virus. It will not
Which is why you're going to get a new flu shot every year for all the different strains that come out.
Exactly.
Okay.
So those memory cells are then how vaccination works. That then when you get really infected, because the spike protein is the first thing it'll see. It's outside there.
Mm-hmm.
The immune cells get activated and then they fight that infection.
I see.
Okay. Right. So fun story about vaccination. I don't know if I can tell you a side story. This is a very fun story and horrifying too. How was the first vaccine made? Do you know how the smallpox vaccine was made?
No, I know frightening little about vaccines, and I know it's a very hot topic.
There was this doctor in England. His name was Edward Jenner.
Okay.
And, he used to see a lot of smallpox patients back then, way back then. And one thing he noticed was that milkmaids never got smallpox, but they got cowpox from milking the cows because cows also.
Is cowpox is it deadly? Is it what's the disease
like? Not to humans. Not to humans.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
So they would get these blisters on their hands that look just like smallpox blisters, but they never got smallpox. Wow. And so, power of observation, he hypothesized that maybe an infection with cowpox protects you against smallpox. So here's the horrifying thing he did. He took a 10-year-old boy and he infected him with cowpox. And after the cowpox lesions healed, he challenged him with smallpox.
No.
Could we do that experiment today?
I hope not. I mean,
that is the only successful vaccine in the history of vaccine. Smallpox has been eradicated. There is no smallpox on this planet.
No smallpox exists. If everyone in the world stopped taking the smallpox vaccine, do people take it? Is it part of the?
We don't take it anymore because it's been eradicated.
Wow. Wait. So, but why would why would it work with the cowpox? That seems to contradict what you're saying. No.
But there was some similarity there that he was able to capitalize on.
So the immune system recognized the cowpox and recognized the smallpox from the cowpox?
Absolutely. There was some similarity that it works against both.
But we haven't been able to replicate that with the flu, where the flu strain changes every year and we still have to get the same different vaccine every time.
Yep.
What? Do we understand how or why?
I'm sure there is science out there. I haven't followed it, but I think the story is so cool and horrifying at the same time.
I can't
That,
imagine. First, I can't believe they did that.
can you imagine the ethical?
Yeah, you know, unfortunately,
Yeah.
I can't imagine it, but I hope that it would be a little bit less, you know, I think it would be something that be kind of swept under the rug rather than, you know, publicized as I guess a tale
I
about this.
yeah. Anyway, so going back to plasma against cancer, so that's what we thought we should do. See if we can stimulate the immune system, educate the immune system about this cancer. So instead of very rapidly killing the cancer cells, we
Mm-hmm.
applied just enough plasma that they got extremely stressed out and they start releasing these help me molecules from them. So they're actually called find me and eat me molecules. They're
No
literally
way. I
called
love
find
those names.
so the
Okay.
find me molecules are released by these cells in their extracellular environment for the immune cells to know that there is danger and a cell is asking for help.
Incredible. So that is a Trojan horse. The Trojan horse would be a great example because what
It
you're
is a
doing is
choice. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you're smoking it out essentially.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
Wow.
they're throwing these molecules out and the immune cells are surveilling all the time everywhere. I mean, the immune cells are everywhere all the time. They're like sentries. So
Mm-hmm.
the immune cells see these molecules and they now start moving toward where these signals are coming from. At the
Okay.
same time, these cells are putting out on their surface, but not releasing them, molecules that are called eat me molecules.
Mm-hmm.
And so now these immune cells come and eat these cells. They process these cells, and that's how the whole immune cycle begins.
Wow.
And immune memories, then these cells go to lymph nodes and train specific soldiers that know how to fight cancer.
Mm-hmm.
They train them
So
and they grow populations of them.
so we're not so that's incredible. So you're using plasma not as a treatment necessarily, but as a very methodical and nuanced means of stimulating the cancer until it gets to the point, not because too much plasma would be detrimental to the tissue or to the rest of the body because it's too powerful, too much energy, I suppose. So you're not using it as a hammer to say, per se, but you're kind of using it as a stick to poke the cancer and then
Absolutely.
wait for the reaction.
Absolutely. We're hitting the tumor, but trying to poke the immune cells. Hey guys, wake up. What are you doing? You're not doing your job.
Yeah. And how quick is the response? How quick is the immune response then?
The immune response is generated within 7 days.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And then it
So
starts
imagine,
shrinking.
here's the beauty of this. Then imagine a person has metastatic lesions. You really only need to treat one tumor.
Yeah. So has why hasn't this been done beforehand? I mean, how did this? There's no other method that we can, for example, I don't understand obviously how a lot of cancer treatments work, but if you would get radiation or some kind of form of like directed, energy against that cancer, no one ever thought to stimulate the cancer as opposed to just try to eviscerate it completely.
So other fields have done it. So this field is called immunogenic cell death for cancer treatment.
Mm-hmm.
It's relatively new field. So, if plasma is 15, 20-year-olds, maybe ICD field is about similar. So they've sort of
Okay.
co-evolved and we just sort of happened to be in the right place at the right time. I came across the right literature at the right time. It was just very accidental. I like to read, so I came across it and I found it. But
Serendipitous.
it was. But there are some chemotherapies that can stimulate immunogenic cell death,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but it's not gone very far.
Mm-hmm.
There are anecdotal evidences in radiation field, where they call them abscopal effects, that you treat one lesion and another lesion suddenly disappears. So now that has been reawakened and people are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Pulsed electric field is another group that are looking at immunogenic cell death. Photodynamic therapy is now looking at immunogenic cell death as a therapeutic modality. Ultrasound is going that way now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I emailed a
Met-
couple of people since you
yeah.
mentioned it to me about I'm
Yeah.
trying
Yeah.
to.
So there are clinical trials that have recently started in the US for some cancers with ultrasound. So in fact, one of my friends is going to get it soon, I hope.
Oh, I hope so. That would be
Yeah.
awesome. We need as much of that as possible.
Right.
And with that, so I've heard a couple of stories, including a very close friend of mine whose dad was diagnosed with a certain type of brain cancer. Is this type of treatment possible to apply to something like that? How would something like that look hypothetically?
So, again, I'm not an engineer. I understand the
Sure.
biology
Yeah,
of,
there's a
but there
step of
is,
speculation at this point
uh,
because it's
no,
developing.
it's not fully speculation. There is
Oh.
an engineer in George Washington University who
Hmm.
has shown in animal models that they can actually get plasma to penetrate through skull, and they've treated glioblastoma with that.
Wow.
Having said that, all my plasma physicist and tell engineers tell me that plasma cannot penetrate that deep.
Hmm.
So it's something else
Yeah,
going on. They're not sure it's plasma. They think it may be pulse electric fields, but there are efforts going on there. So for deeper cancers is where these plasma functionalized liquids will become important.
I see. Right. That makes sense. That makes
So
sense.
a group in Japan that has shown, and actually the group in Germany has also shown that, um, uh, if they have abdominal tumors in mice, you can infuse this fluid in, and all the tumors disappear after a few
What
treatments.
fluid?
This plasma functionalized
Oh, the
fluid.
plasma. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask now a little bit. Thank you so much. This is awesome. This is so cool. Where you mentioned that in America, and we talked on the phone a little bit about this, but I want to kind of elaborate on this a little bit. Where this research is happening, because you said it's relatively new. There's not a lot of funding for it in America. And then I also want to ask you about the FDA hurdles and regulation that is so difficult and so complicated to kind of penetrate and make your way through. Can you begin perhaps by explaining some of the places, some of the other places that this research is going on in general with plasma, other countries perhaps, or other universities, and then or other institutions, and then also what is holding it up in America?
I mean, America, the biggest thing holding it up is funding. Um,
Okay.
I mean, so I think our lab, along with the group at NC State, is doing the crux of the plasma medicine work where biology is deeply ingrained.
Mm-hmm.
I work with cancer immunologists and all, and we keep submitting grants. And then the group at George Washington, there is a surgeon that's working with that group, and they have a plasma device out there that they've used in patients. Um, those are the two major groups in the United States. Because of the lack of funding, there is a lot of plasma agriculture as far as plasma biology goes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot going on that. And that's also very cutting edge, very exciting. A whole other thing. In the world, I would say the largest groups are sitting in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
They have 5 different devices. Several have CE approval in Germany for chronic wound healing, so diabetic ulcers that don't heal at all.
Wow.
So they're doing very, very well with that. They are also now, based on some of our work, they're doing work on actinic keratosis. So actually, I should step back and say there is a clinician in New York State that I've worked with who's treated some patients as case studies, and it's all published, that formed the basis of a number of our studies and other people's studies.
Oh
So, but
yeah.
the group in Germany is now they have a whole plasma against actinic keratosis, which are precancerous lesions, so treatment of that and understanding the science and all that.
Right.
Um, then the other large groups are in Japan and in South Korea. There are small groups scattered in Eastern Eastern Europe. So there's Slovakia, Slovenia, Czech Republic, small groups in Romania. Oh, I forgot the group in Spain. My goodness. The group in Spain is doing cutting edge things. So instead of doing liquids, what they are doing is functionalizing biocompatible biomaterials for delivery
Plasma
inside.
biomaterial.
Yes. So they're using
Whoa.
plasma to functionalize biodegradable, biocompatible materials that they can then deposit in the body. So you get
Wow.
twofold advantage. One, you get the plasma species penetrating in slowly.
Hmm.
And two, because the biomaterial itself gets altered, they are harnessing the therapeutic effects of that. So they're
Wow.
doing that for bone cancer, and they're doing very cutting edge work. Very, very cool lab. Just great, great work.
So so when we see what I think, I mean, what you're describing seems to be very positive and very beneficial results. Why would funding not free up for that? Or why would people, and because not all funding obviously is government funding, and a lot of stuff is research and medicinal and private and, business applications and biomedical engineering and stuff like that. If you're seeing a lot of these positive results, why? I mean, I would imagine that would free up some money, no?
I don't understand why, because so what happens is that I think there's plasma hesitance, basically. I mean, we get great reviews on our grants. And then there's
Hmm.
one person who sort of reads in between the lines and says, or goes and reads an engineer's paper and says, yeah, but they say it does this and does that and does that and does that. And I don't know if I want to believe it. Or they'll
Thanks.
say, well, they have not highlighted the safety aspect. So, I mean, really, the critiques are so weak that we ourselves can't wrap our head around why we're not getting funded. Whereas in Europe, I mean, there have been like large multi-laboratory grants.
Right. Right.
So I just don't understand. There is a group in Arizona, a company that is going through FDA approval as we speak now.
Hmm.
Uh, I hope they get it and open the
Hmm.
doors. But some of these European appliances that have approval in the EU are trying to go through FDA. The big problem we are facing in the United States is FDA wants to know the mechanism of action. And when you say chemistry, they say, well, is it a drug then? If it is a drug, what is the drug? We can't say what the drug is because we don't know the composition. It's such a metastable chemistry.
Right.
And
Whoa.
then the other option is a drug device combination, which is also fraught with others. So,
You think it's
again,
too gray? It's too.
I'm a lab rat. I don't try to understand that. I let the business people fight that battle.
So one of my favorite questions then, I guess, as a follow-up would be, how far behind do you think we are relative to what we're capable of in terms of medicine? On a scale, let's say from 1 to 10, 10 being that, like like we're completely held up and like we're jam-packed to, 1 being like, yeah, there's not much interference. Like we're like, because I mean,
I would
especially
say
if you,
9. I would
you say
say
9,
I would say
the potential is endless.
the potential is endless. And again, not to toot our own horn, but the kind of work that our groups are doing, we've been the pioneer in showing the immunogenic cell death pathways.
Hmm.
We're the pioneer in showing the controllability of plasma. We were the pioneers in showing that the biological target alters plasma. Guys, don't measure your device in your lab. You have to measure it on every individual person.
Hmm. Right.
Um, I forgot France. My goodness, how could I forget Grammy? France is doing a lot of work. That is
Correct.
another very strong lab. That is another strong lab where the engineers and the physicists and the biologists are working like this. They have a very strong possibility for moving ahead too. And again, Jean-Michel Pouvel is one of the clearest thinking physicists, very dynamic. I mean, he's just fun. He loves this stuff. So they
Yeah.
will make a lot of progress. But we have the potential of being first in, but we will not be because
Hmm.
now with all the cuts in the research funding, I think we've put ourselves 10 years behind already. And the
Wow.
catch up is going to be very, very hard.
Wow. I hope you're, unfortunately, I hope you're wrong, but I mean, you have more experience than I do with this, so I'll have to take your word for it. I
I
like
hope
to
I'm
be.
wrong. I sure do hope. I hope something magic happens to
Do you
make.
think that there's been a breakdown socially, not a breakdown actually, a coming together socially and understanding that science is more interdisciplinary and that people are going to start looking at science or have been starting to look at science a little bit more holistically than I would even call it tribally, that people are kind of rejecting other people or other scientists, other researchers because it's not their field. Like, oh, well, if it's not physics, then I'm not interested in it, or it's not bio, it's not my field.
Um, so I'm going to give you a mixed answer here. I think they're moving that way,
Hmm.
but the amount of things on an academic researcher's plate just doesn't allow them the flexibility of being that interdisciplinary. There are not enough hours in the day.
Hmm.
Who are the most energetic people? The young assistant professors and the associate professors. Assistant professor are trying to build their CV. They need publications. They need grants to do all that. Need student mentoring. They need teaching. Da 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 da.
Hmm.
Where is the time? And they're also at the time when they're building their families, which
Right.
somehow in the United States we never think of that part of an individual's life as being vital to their physical and mental well-being.
Can you maybe elaborate on what you mean by that?
You
Because
know,
I think I agree with you, but I'd like to hear maybe some further thoughts on that.
I mean, who do you think work best? The happiest people. And
Right.
if they're not happy at home, then they can't work well. But if so much is demanded at work, you don't always have the time to go to your daughter's dance recital because the grant is pending or there's a student's defense. Or, you can't go to that family wedding because you have to be at a conference. Or, it's rough. It's really,
Mm-hmm.
really rough. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
know assistant professors who are submitting 14, 15 grants a year. It takes a
Wow.
lot out of you to do that. So it's a
Yeah.
constant juggling act, and I don't think it's fair. We don't give maternity leave to our women, whereas in Germany, they get a 1 year paid leave. So it's this the human side of life is getting completely lost, in my opinion. Where
I
you,
I I totally agree with you. It's a massive concern that I have in general, and I one of the things that have been very off-putting to me that I've heard, that I've witnessed, firsthand and heard as I, went through my 20s and I'm starting my 30s, is I'll work now and I'll deal with it. I'll deal with the important things in life later. I'll deal with the family later. I'll deal with the
there's
kids later.
never that later. There's never
Like,
that
what does
later.
that even mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And the people
I
that
don't.
have lived that,
Hmm.
their kids don't have a great relationship with them for the most part, because, what is there to have, and okay, you might have the abundance, you might have security, you might have economic stability, or more,
For what?
economic comfort,
For
but
what?
at what cost?
Yeah. But what do you do with it? If you have all the money but no time to use the money,
Yeah.
money
Yeah.
is not for wearing expensive clothes and driving expensive cars. It's the
Well, it depends who you're
experience
talking
that
to.
people remember, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you
I mean,
take your kids to the museum and have spent a fun day with them, they'll remember that more than, if you took them to Wolfgang Puck's restaurant. I don't even know who the.
yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I totally agree. And science and humanities, like I mentioned earlier, always went hand in hand. And so to remove the humanity from science, especially because we can't even find a way to conduct science without an observer. So like
Right, right.
you obviously need humanity.
Right. But so, I think what's happened now is the funding agencies are forcing our hands a little bit because I think the funding agencies are wrapping their head around the fact that to have any meaningful progress and have novel work coming out, they are actually encouraging more and more interdisciplinary work. So that is forcing us to reach out across the aisle and look for other.
Hmm.
So I
Right.
think, and that happened when the tobacco money came,
Meaning,
when they did the settlements with the tobacco companies. So a lot of that funds were given to toward health research funding.
right. I spoke with a physicist named Sidney Perkowitz from Emory, who told me he went to Emory in I think the 80s, and then got an $120 million grant from Coca-Cola of all people, and is able to completely transform the department. And I was like, I didn't know that Coca-Cola's in the business of funding physics. And he's like, they're just, I think they had to, I think it was something like they had to, or, it looked good for their R&D, or,
Something,
social,
yeah.
social responsibility. But we need more. I imagine we need more of that, right?
Right. So, but so it's called CURE. Those grants are called CURE.
Hmm.
Um, they mandate that it be an interdisciplinary grant.
Okay, they
So
mandate it,
they mandate it.
and
So
that's good. I imagine that they demand that
that's
it
very
be
good. That's very,
right.
very good because it's opened new avenues so for example, a cancer researcher who's always been doing cancer biology, for example, now is able to work with a plasma medicine person
Yes.
and get that seed funding to generate some preliminary data to then go for bigger grants. So I
Right.
mean,
Right.
we are now going to Department of Defense mostly because they fund sort of wild and crazy ideas,
Yeah.
especially if you can tell them that, oh, this can be field ready.
Forgot whether it was the Marines or the Navy, but the marine biologist I was talking about earlier, she studies snapping shrimp. And one thing she says that when they snap their claw, they create this air bubble that creates this explosion. And she's like, or this sonic boom almost. And it's so loud and it's so effective when they do it together that it actually gets in the way of communications.
Oh,
And so she's like, so the Marine, or I forgot whether it was the Marine or the Navy, was like, had to figure out how these snapping shrimp work. And she's like, well, I'm just, like she's just hanging out with whales and dolphins and doing this research, and they're fast. And it's so cool how anything could be kind of applied from one world to another. But
yeah.
that's the beauty of the world. That's the beauty of science, is that it's all connected and none of it exists in a
Absolutely.
vacuum.
Yep, yep. And that's where I think being interdisciplinary, having those conversations opens our eyes and opportunities and thought process.
Hmm.
I mean, again, I spoke with a physicist and I thought of biology. I
Hmm.
immediately thought of redox
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's what I knew. But then through those conversations, we were able to make connections.
So using that guiding principle of kind of like following these paths and seeing what disciplines kind of open the doors for the next thing, what do you think, what's exciting for you that's on the horizon that you think is the next kind of cross-discipline application of something of fun science that hasn't been looked at yet?
Oh, geez, that's an interesting question because I always think about plasma because I look at all the potential applications there. And so my dream with plasma
Hmm.
medicine
When you grow
is,
up.
is when I think I'll be long gone before that happens. But my dream application would be needle-free vaccination for children
Really?
with plasma. Yes, it's theoretically it's possible because
Can you explain how that look like?
they have DNA vaccines, right? DNA doesn't need refrigeration. It can be stored at room temperature. Um, if you plasma treat skin, you do two things. You loosen up the intercellular junctions, you make the
Mhm.
membrane a little bit more fluid so molecules
Mhm.
can go in,
Mhm.
but also you attract immune cells to that area of treatment. Now, if I were to take that DNA vaccine and just paint it on, treat the kid, it's painless for a few seconds and paint that vaccine on, or, maybe have the vaccine impregnated into a DNA or into a band aid, put the band
Wow.
in, and it slowly seeps in, and you're done. Imagine how
Are
much mothers would love you if you didn't have to poke needles into their.
So you're excited about the concept because needles is a scary form of application of the medicine.
Well, it's expensive.
Okay.
It's hard in the third world because
Okay.
it's expensive.
Right.
Current vaccines need to be refrigerated, which is not
Mhm.
available in the third world. The
Right.
field application of this is just so attractive to me. Take a box of Band-Aids, take a handheld plasma device, boom, boom, done. Boom, boom, done.
Amazing. 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 That's really cool. I never thought about that, and yeah. One thing that lament, but I'm getting hope about because more people I'm finding people that are like this is scientists that are excited about like new things and using their imagination about like what things could be like instead of being, very hard nosed or or a little too pragmatic. I think there's a time and place for both those to exist, and
Yeah.
the imagination could be for the potential in the future, and the pragmatism could be for the actual application of the work that you're doing. And I totally think that's great. It should
You
be that
gotta
way,
dream.
but
You gotta dream.
you gotta dream. You gotta dream. I know it's crazy because it sounds cliche and it's something that I'm even naturally defensive about because the zeitgeist has been so allergic to this notion of dreaming and excitement and enthusiasm and what ifs and how could that be and I think we need I think we need more of that. I think that's kind of what made America and what made Americans successful for as long as it was. And I think when we started losing our success and we started falling was when we stopped dreaming. We kind of just kept on saying, okay, well, we have the answers for everything and like everything is already just done and worked out. So we're there and we're done.
Well, I mean, there's that, and now the whole economic environment for the young people. My heart breaks for them because they're not able to dream.
Yes.
They take the job they get
Yes.
because
And
the student loans are piling up. So
credit card loans, buy
my
now, pay later, student
yeah.
loans. I saw that I think 50% or more of people below 30 and below, right? I forgot what the generation's called as far as what we call them, but that are buying their groceries on buy now, pay later plans because it's it's too expensive. There's not enough money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
It's that's devastating. That's scary. That freaks me out on a regular basis, and I don't quite know what to do about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So, one thing is the day-to-day living that, the despair
Hmm.
that they, it's almost like the depression,
Yeah.
almost like analogous to that. But then in the long term, if they forget to dream, and where are we going to be 20 years from now when hopefully things will
Hmm.
recover? Unless this whole global warming just, no, let's not go there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not. But I'm with you. I'm trying to figure it out. I think that, I mean, from I guess, human level, my opinion is that a lot of the devastation happened because we've destroyed our connection to the past and the future as a society. And so people exist in this vacuum and then we become desensitized to the news. So nothing really means anything or is exciting or scary or meaningful or whoa anymore. Everything is just like, okay, well, that's one crazy thing my brain
Another
has
one.
already
Yeah.
processed.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
move on. Yeah, exactly. And we've kind of created these little bubbles of like momentary reality that people are living in rather than feeling connected to a bigger chain of something you want to participate in.
Well, and so that brings me back to the whole diversity and interdisciplinary thing that, where we're pushing interdisciplinary interactions in science or in academic disciplines, we're using diversity as a divisive thing when it comes to human interactions.
Yeah.
Whereas, that's what makes the world beautiful. If you and I thought of everything the exact same way, why do we need both of us?
I had to go through that I had to figure out that process while I was dating. Because every time I dated a girl that was not like, they didn't think exactly like me or look at the world the same way I did, I'd break up with her and I'd be like, what am I doing? I'm not trying to marry myself over here. I need to find someone that fills in the holes in the area that I'm not good at and the things that I'm missing out and complements me in ways that, and that I could bring to the table something about myself that they don't have. And then we could be a unit together and fill in the blanks where it's necessary. And we should
Yeah.
have that socially and as a society as well. Totally. I think it's
And
exactly
I
right.
don't know why, but that's getting lost. I just don't understand why that's getting lost. I mean, for my
I think
personal example, coming here from India, not knowing a soul, when my daughter was born, and then my mother was diagnosed with cancer almost immediately after.
I'm
I was
sorry.
running back and forth to India every 3-4 months. I mean, our neighborhood brought my daughter up. It was always like, don't worry. So, when people say product of a village, she is the product of a village.
Yes, yes, yes. I
And
did you read The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt?
No.
Haidt.
Now I'm going to start reading.
That that book is incredible. It's one of my favorite books, and I say the same thing because my son, I'm Orthodox Jewish, and I have a synagogue that I pray at 2 or 3 times a day in my community, and I see the same people, the same 50 families every weekend, every day. My kid grows up with them, and there are people that he's been familiar with, total strangers, strangers, that he has this enormous extended sense of family and community and comfort with people. And he's not afraid of someone
Mhm.
that's, just outside his purview or living outside his house. And the world isn't us against everyone else. It's the world is exciting. The world is fun. The world is familial. The world is people that know you since you're born and helping take care of you. And it's it does take a village, and we've kind of cut the village apart. We've ripped it out of its roots.
Yeah. I mean, for us, it was just so international, the crowd. Our next door
Hmm.
neighbor was Haitian, married to a French guy. So,
Wow.
we had that. And then there was this really, really old couple who were in their 80s. And, at times, if I had to run out grocery shopping or do something really quickly, I would just plant her. So they were the grandparents, just sort of, it
Hmm.
was just very, very cool. We had um, all kinds of religions. We had Muslims, we had Jewish people, we had Hindus. It was just like everything there.
Yeah.
And it was such a great environment to bring up a child. And I was
Where
never,
was this?
this is in Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
mean, it was just a
Um.
lovely environment.
Yeah. We need. Man, I think I've heard anecdotally, and I've read a couple of what I hope to be relatively accurate polls or studies that the kids below the age of 20 have been abandoning a lot of the unhealthy habits that my generation perhaps has embodied, like social media, and they're more inclined to go to church or to be religious or to go to movies and leave their phones at home if they're going to hang out with friends and things like that. And it's an enormous, enormous struggle to separate myself from my phone on any given
Mhm.
time, any given basis. I'm addicted to it, and like it's compulsive for sure. And I'm catching myself with my kids, and I'm like, I don't need to be doing anything that I'm doing right now. My excuse is that I have work. Excuse is that I need an email I need to respond to. I need to do this for that, but I don't. It's not. They're not real excuses. And at the times
Yeah.
I put my phone down for a couple of hours, my life is only better. I don't miss out on all these opportunities. My life just gets better from being in the present.
It's as you said, it's a compulsive habit that you will have to work hard to break.
Yes.
And anymore, half our lives are on these boxes. We carry this computer in our pockets that
Mm-hmm.
rules us. I mean, yeah, we count our steps. How much did I walk? Everything. Yeah, can't solve all
Yeah.
the problems of the world, but
Well, one at a time, one at a time. Then new ones come up, and you got to do that again. But
yeah,
people like you and scientists and researchers and doctors and practitioners, hopefully one day at a time, will continue helping to educate and enlighten and provide real helpful answers. Um, Vandana, thank you so much. This is such a wonderful conversation. This is so much fun. It's thought-provoking and exciting, and you explain a lot of this complicated science. And I hope I think it. I understood it, and I have no background in this, so in a digestible and accessible, fun way. So thank you so much. This really means a lot. Thank you.
yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed. Well, hope maybe we'll do this again sometime. Thank you.
Sure. Remember, next time I'm asking.